Creation is my people's language. Blended ebony and ivory keys, Coltrane G to major C. Our gangster has always been innovative.
It's been roughly 2 years since the last time I sat down with spoken word artist Huntor Prey, and we're actually going to be catching up with him because a lot has happened since those 2 years. Hunter, thank you so much for speaking with me today and sitting down.
Thanks for having me. Again,
yes, I'm so glad that we can catch up. For those that don't know exactly what is spoken word art, what is that? How would you describe that to someone who has no idea what that is?
spoken word is basically the art of poetry and the art of writing. One of the reasons why it's called spoken word is because of the performance of it. So depending on how you perform it and how you present it to the people is usually how they kind of categorize spoken word. In my eyes, it's kind of all encompassing. Like, spoken word is writing, it is poetry, it is speaking it. I even consider verses, hip hop, things like that to kind of fall under that umbrella.
Yo, alternate reality, alternate points of view. Parallel universes, Picard versus Q. Living these verses, transforming krakens and demigorgons. This life is semi-torturous, albeit semi-gorgeous. Form a latchkey kid in metamorphosis. At times it's changing like switches in gray DeLoreans. Flickering lights when I roll by. Car lights swoop like fireflies. Epic multicolored skies.
So it's that rhythmic motion kind of flowing with it, with poetry and how you feel. That's such a unique talent. And it was actually, you've had this talent since you were a kid, that people along your youth have been really pushing you towards this path to really achieve your dreams. Is that right?
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to my mother. Thank you. Yeah, she took me to my first open mic when I was in junior high.
Wow.
When I was in junior high, and one of her friends, actually one of the stalwarts of black art in this community, Dr. Imelda Hunt, it was her open mic, and as a kid, they let me participate. And there were some very known, like, local writers there, like one who just recently left us, but I would be remiss to not shout him out in his influence, Melvin Douglas. He was there, and I remember all the support that they gave me, so I just kind of went with it from there. At times, I look out on the open field and I search for butterflies. With a child's eye, I search for butterflies. When I find one, you know what I do? You know what I do? I run. I chase it, I run, knowing that if I can catch it or catch up to it, it can show me my path, how I can be free just like it, how I can fly in a zigzag pattern of a straight line, and my small wings can create a hurricane theory of progress. With wind at my back and air under my feet, I can be like it, and it can be with me.
Where do you get a lot of your inspiration for your work?
It comes from a lot of different places. It can come from personal experiences. It can come from the things that I see. It can come from other people's experiences. Sometimes it can come from pop culture. Sometimes it can come from just the feeling that I may get just from music. So I kind of do this big gumbo amalgamation of things when I'm usually working or when I usually like create something.
And your messages are so powerful. The last time that we covered you, just the two performances that you had were just absolutely amazing and really kind of politically driven, and also kind of like what society sees people and stereotypes. And I mean, what do you hope that these works can really challenge that society outlook?
Outside of giving a different voice, my stuff can be politically and socially driven, but I always tend to try and tackle things from like a different angle. That's kind of why a lot of times in my work, or particularly one, I think of the works that we did was Running Man.
Yes.
I try to use metaphors in that way, because sometimes, just sometimes, you can be straightforward with someone and they'll get it. And then other times you have to put it in a story or in an allegory or in a parable or something of that nature for them to be like, oh. And so I try to utilize all of those different things, like all those different things. And with the message I want to give outside of just the idea of artistry, I want to display a humanity to kind of everything that I do. Creation is my people's ladder. Now we sit in high society with low-brow fitted hats. No cap, no lies, just infinite imagination pulled from the blackness of our lives, the black of our dreams, gatekeepers of the cool and all that jazz. American Mozart tailor-made with rhythm and blues so rock and roll could walk the path already paved. Sun shines even in dark times, and we string silver lining poems and wrap pretty pink bows around anguish and call it soul. That is our gift, because creation is my people's battle cry. My first video was actually for this song called This Way. Basically, it was literally about blue collar, like Midwest living. And so we kind of traveled all across like Ohio as much as we could to kind of get like beef footage and everything else to explain like these different places and these different areas. Naturally, I can lean into the spoken word of it all. I was like, because like I can do those things on stage and everything else. But as far as like actually getting into the videos, it's really, really cool because then you actually kind of get into the idea of the editing of it. How do you want this to hit? Where do you want this scene to change? Is there going to be an effect here? Like all of those different things. And like I'm having fun with it. Like I love it. So
battle with humanity to reach a higher zone. Maybe I mean zone. Maybe we leave now, hiding from confusion like riddles for the clueless. Speaking in metaphor and all illusion. Conclusion: we living in the upside down.
Your whole world has changed since the pandemic. I mean, you were on project after project after project in Toledo. Tell us what you've been up to for the last 2 years since the last time we saw you.
Okay. After the last interview, I was actually contacted by the creative director for like the Mud Hens and the Walleye. My guy Dan, like he was really, really cool, and he said he had an idea. And the idea was that he wanted to do something for the intro for the Mud Hens, being that everything's been shut down for so long. We talked about bringing the joy back to Hensville. I wrote it, brought it back to them, they loved it, and then we shot it. So last year was hard. A curveball nobody saw coming, was something terrifying and heartbreaking seemingly every day coming out of left field. Isolation, frustration, loss. A city in suspension, a ballpark made empty, and the roaring of cheers lived as only echoes on the wind. You know, someone once said, oh, somewhere in this favored land, the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. For there was no joy in Mudville. Well, we come from and work from the mud. And they displayed it like on the big screen and everything else. And it was just a really, really cool feeling. And the crowd loved it, everybody loved it. And then they said, hey, we might have you come back for like the Walleye. You were right there on the verge of championship. You know, when you're younger, you always have like your ideas and your dreams and everything else. And one of the things that I can say is that there are things that you want to do and you can push for them, and they'll happen. But sometimes you won't realize it's happened because it didn't look exactly like the dream you had in your head, but it happened. I was sitting there while I was looking at this opening, seeing like my face and everything on the big screen, and then hearing people cheer and realizing that, okay, whatever I said connected and it touched them. But also realizing like, yo, that's the moment. This is the arena. This is the people. So in that way, I was literally able to achieve like that dream.
Do you already have like an idea of like what the beat is, what the theme of the piece is going to feel like? Is it fast-paced, slow-paced? What does that process look like for you?
Yes and no. Yes and no. One thing that I do know that I tend to do is try to match, I guess, first the emotion of what I'm trying to get across. Since I'm like a big story slash movie type kind of person, I tend to follow those same tenets. So it's like there's always an intro, there's always an opening. Then, you know, I would have kind of like the beginning setup or either like the thesis. After that, once we go into the story, this is when we actually lead into the issues, which lead into the climax. I was like, the climax will then lead to the resolution. So there's always that flow to like storytelling that I try to have on my stuff. When I match that with the emotion, that's when the words kind of like present themselves. All calligraphy written by me in the grass where my butterflies flew. Only to learn that love is a freedom that chooses to sit in the palm of your hands. That dreams are on a flight stream without pattern headed towards the horizon. That relationships, like life, can be delicate things. And they can either stay, land, or leave you. So yeah, I chase butterflies, chasing dreams. Like the wind chases the breeze. And my eyes can envision someday a scene of me catching up to those dreams.